Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to see everyone here and our great speakers. We will have a very interesting topic today about Silicon Valley and human innovation and design experience in the past, present, and future. We will have amazing speakers from Stanford with a lot of expertise on this topic. I um, I will keep this a little bit as intrigue and will let Daria Mishinkova from Stanford to introduce the speakers. In the meantime, I just would mention that Natalia, Pulyavina, Michael Shanks, and Victor Taratukhin are joining and will be speaking on this topic. So a few notes about the community. This community has been started 3 months ago and we are growing very fast. We already have thousands of entrepreneurs joining our community from around the world. We unite English-speaking entrepreneurs to connect globally, and we want to give them equal and free access to global capital, customers, and like-minded people. And the role of the members of the community is very simple, is to help each other to achieve business results going global. Our recent speakers on the community, Steve Hoffman, Bob Dorf, Bill Reichert, Ilyas Tribulaev, Donna Griffith. So all those names are known for business communities around the world, and I'm so happy that today's speakers also joined us. Another special event we have is live pitch to global investors. We connect startups that are ready to go to the United States and other markets, and basically investors from around the world connect and observe and judge their pitches. Our upcoming sessions with great speakers in a couple of days. We will have a few webinars in Russian, History of Silicon Valley Part 3. Evgeny Dukhovny makes it very interactive and it was super successful previously, so we decided to make Part 3. Please join us. Also, the other person from the United States will talk on regulatory requirements for startups in the United States. And if somebody is interested on this topic, please join us. It's very interesting. And another, my also favorite topic about electric cars, future electric cars and autonomous cars. How to raise capital on such complex projects. And we will talk about that with Mikhail in the end of July. Tomorrow we will have another networking event with the community, with founders from around the world, so we will be able to connect, learn about each other, and see how we can help each other. So please feel to join our networking event. And basically that's it. If you like our events, you want to meet our exclusive speakers and interact with them and learn the best content, wherever you are, that doesn't matter for us. We want to help every entrepreneur around the world to have access to the best information around the world, globally, so you can benefit. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, because we do it for free just to help entrepreneurship. And final words, a few words, our partners, Rus Base, IV Consultant, Technopark Skolkovo, GSD Venture Studios, and of course, Moscow School of Management, Skolkovo. How to join the community for those who never been in our community? You just can find us on Facebook, Go Global World, or you can scan this QR code. You may also join our local groups of your country, like Go Global Russia, Go Global United States, Go Global Mexico, and so on. We also on Telegram, for example, Go Global Russia, you can join. We are on LinkedIn, Go Global World, and this video will be posted on our YouTube channel, Go Global World on YouTube. So please like it, subscribe, and if you have questions, write your questions in the chat below the video, and so more people can interact and learn and discuss this topic, because it's very interesting and can last very long under that video. If you need more specific questions to discuss, you can see my contacts on the screen. Feel free to reach me out. I'll be happy to help entrepreneurs with anything you guys need. And now I'm happy to introduce Daria Mishinkova. She is a top manager from Executive MBA Skolkovo. I know her personally as a great person, super well connected, hyper connected person, both in Russia and in the United States and the Silicon Valley. She has an amazing, I don't know, sense of connectivity. So probably she knows so many people in Silicon Valley, you cannot really believe. And at the same time, we work with her both on executive MBA program. We actually help students to start companies. And you know, I can say from my end how I'm impressed the results we achieve at Skolkovo, and students, our students are raising real money after our program. So this is truth, and it makes me super happy. So Daria, I let you continue introducing yourself, and please introduce the speakers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Danil. I like the picture that you've chosen. I have a nice hairstyle there. Thank you. I'm so happy and really honored to introduce to you our amazing team who are going to present today. We had a luck with Pavel Bilenko, who I also see among the participants today, but in fact, he is our academic leader of Silicon Valley modules for executive MBA and MBA students of Moscow School of Management Skolkovo. So we had a luck to get acquainted with today's speakers when in Silicon Valley. And we have a team of 3, Michael Shanks, Viktor Taratukhin, and Natalia Pulyavina. This is a Stanford team. And first I want to introduce, of course, Professor Michael Shanks, who is absolutely an outstanding personality for me, such an amazing and interesting person. You definitely always want to meet and talk and ask questions and just have fun with, because you always learn from him and know something outstanding, something unusual, something super interesting. Michael Shanks is a professor of Stanford University and one of the most influential of contemporary archaeological thinkers and researchers. Dr. Viktor Taratukhin, he's representing today 2 great names. Stanford University is the first great name you already know, and company SAP. So Viktor is working as a speaker, as a professor, as a researcher all over the world. So in Europe, in Russia, and in USA. And he's working with great teams and companies all over the world. And probably you all heard about such names he's working with as Boeing and NASA and the Seven, Severstyle, and many, many others. And Natalia Pulyavina is another Stanford team member, and she's working a lot with the multinational teams in USA, in Europe, and in Russia. She's working with companies who are looking for transformation, who are looking for innovation and new corporate culture. So I'm sure, guys, that we will have an absolutely amazing conversation. I really force you to be active and ask questions and interact with our speakers after they finish their main parts. And I'm sure we will learn something new about where innovation comes from and about this great methodology that I really like a lot, which is design thinking. So the floor is yours, Michael, Viktor, and Natalia.
Okay, thank you very much, Daria, Danil. And yeah, I'm going to launch straight into some thoughts about where we are at the moment and what the implications are for the future, and especially for your future, building new businesses and being entrepreneurial and all the rest. So let me share my screen with you in the normal way that we're used to now. Here we go.
New reality, new normal.
Oh yeah, totally. So here we are. You should be seeing a deck of slides that I'm going to rattle through with you. I'm going to run through with you with some thoughts about really the future of design thinking as a key component of organizing business, of looking really to the future. But with a twist, I'm going to talk about looking backwards, which is why I've got a picture here of an old tombstone from Scotland. Anyway, let me just tell you a little bit about me very quickly. So yes, as you've heard from Daria, I'm here at Stanford. We have a unit in our School of Engineering, a marvelous long-standing unit called the Center for Design Research. And I'm so proud to be connected with them, been working now, really developing design thinking, and understanding how design and innovation works in Silicon Valley. And my old friend and colleague Larry Leifer is fronting that organization, that unit. I'm not going to say much more about what's on this slide. You can have a look later. But there is one thing I'll mention. So yeah, I'm an archaeologist, and an archaeologist who takes it very seriously, that archaeology, as I hope to kind of show you, is actually all about the future. And it's about the future because we need to understand where we are now in a big picture so as to get ourselves ready for what will be complex and uncertain and risky in the future. So I'm kind of going to be bringing things down to earth for you with your businesses and business opportunities. Here are just some of the organizations and businesses that I've worked with. But I'm also going to take a bit of a flight up in the air to get a bigger bird's eye view, if you like, on where we are at the moment. And so I want to get us some positive perspective in this time of crisis. But a little bit of orientation, design thinking. I'm not going to tell you what design thinking is today. That's for another time. But I do suggest, if you don't know and haven't had a go at using design thinking, that you try it out. 65% at least of startups here in Silicon Valley, and indeed globally, are now adopting some form of design thinking in managing innovation. It's a big deal, and it is not new. That's something else, but again, I'm not going to go into that. The key message of design thinking is that it's all about people, that we live in a world where we think it's all about technology, it's all about investment, it's about startup funding and such. Well, beneath it all, underlying it all, the key foundation, the key insight is it comes down to people in different ways. This is why here at Stanford, we like to call design thinking human-centered design. Human-centered, putting people at the heart of things. And so, okay, how do we do that? And what's it got to do with where we are at the moment? I'm going to expand design thinking a bit today, given our current crisis, by reaching into the past. As I say, I'm an archaeologist. I'm interested in where we've come from. And I'm going to make a case for an expansion of design thinking into or with, by means of what we're calling business archaeology. And we have a network already building of people who are looking to expand the human, our conception of the human, how we understand and work with people in human-centered design, how we get our heads around this for the future, how we make ourselves better at design thinking by taking people, their memories, their histories, the past more seriously. The case then for business archaeology is what I'm going to be talking about today. So let's plunge straight into where we are at the moment. As I think most of us have appreciated now, the current circumstances we're in is not just about a virus. It's so much more. Look what it's raising. I mean, frankly, sometimes I just find the craziness of the political situation here in the United States difficult to get your head around, because yeah, there's a virus going on, but look at what it's thrown up in terms of deep, deep issues of disunity, of inequality, of people who are a key component of our society not feeling that they are represented fairly, that they have appropriate, equal life opportunities. This is not just about a virus. And more importantly, I think, well, more importantly, but also globally, look at the issues being raised about how do we collaborate? How do we share information? How do we approach these big issues to do with pandemics, collaboration, the global world at a local level. We're also local now with social distancing. Okay, let me now put my archaeology hat on, my anthropology hat on, and stand back a little bit. For as long as we've been human, we've lived with other species, with things, yes, artifacts, but also species. Of course, we know about our pets and about farm animals, but also, let's face it, for as long as we've been human, we've been part of communities that have included bacteria and viruses. For better or worse, we've been connected in this way. This issue of connection and how we deal with connections is at the heart, again, of design thinking. I'm just putting that in there to get us going. So there's nothing new about us handling other species, including viruses and bacteria. We sometimes ask ourselves, is this a new normal? All this business of wearing masks, of social distancing, of all of the research that's going into handling the virus. This seems to be, oh my goodness, when this is new, this is different. We're going to have to face new futures here. No. This actually is the human experience. We've been living with other species, other bacteria, viruses that have had an impact, that are part of our lives for as long as we've been human. What we're experiencing is not new. It's been the story of human history. What many of us, though, are experiencing for the first time personally is actually the normal in human history. We're in the normal world. It's just we may not have gone through it in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And if you did, you've kind of forgotten. So there's a key point. It's not actually different. What we are facing, which again has been there for a long time, for as long as we've been human, is the challenge of how do we deal with complexity? When things come along that weren't expected, when things just don't fit together. How do we fit things together? And it's not just on the big global scale, it's in our everyday lives, where the risk, the unexpected nature of everyday life is being made very, very clear to us. It's about uncertainty. And here are two key issues that we know are right at the heart of all of our personal experiences: security, insecurity. Who do you trust? Who do you believe? Is it the government doing it all for you? Or do we organize at a more local level in communities, in families, in companies, in corporations? But the key issues are human issues, not of technology, of trust, not of science so much, of how do we face insecurity? How do we build knowledges that help us do this? Okay, so I've mentioned that the past can help orient us. And this is a key component of what we're saying about human-centered design. Let's look back as well as forward. Not so much to learn from history. History doesn't really repeat itself. But we can look to see where we've been before. And there are three stories that I'll just put to you. They're very short. And they're about pandemics. And they come from a period of history that I have studied for a long time. And that's the ancient world. And two of them are actually myths, they're legends. One is the story of Oedipus, the king. He was king of Thebes, and he came to power in a pandemic. And he had to deal with the plague, the disease that was around there. And in so doing, the background, as it was, to him dealing with all of this came out, skeletons in the cupboard. And it turns out that he had murdered his father, married his mother, hadn't realized this, and had been far too arrogant, far too self-confident. He thought he had all the answers. And the story shows how he fell from being king to being one of the most miserable on earth that you could imagine. So the story of the pandemic here was all about power and agency. These people in charge who think they know it all, these leaders who take it upon themselves to be, frankly, a little too arrogant. Another story of the Trojan War, with Agamemnon, king, head of the Greek contingent, 1,000 ships that go to Troy to lay siege to this city, this rival on the other side of the Aegean Sea. Agamemnon and the great hero of the Greeks, Achilles, have an argument The background is a plague. There's a plague, there's a disease, there's an epidemic among the Greeks, and it's down to apparently a god, Apollo, who has been insulted and who has sent a disease to trouble, to literally plague the Greeks. But what's the story again about? It's not about actually the plague, the virus, the bacteria. It's about power. And it's about rivalry between Agamemnon, who again is very arrogant, and Achilles, who has a different angle on who should be in charge in matters of crisis, in times of crisis. So again, it's not about a virus, it's about agency, how you make things happen, how you make things change, and how you organize your community in terms of power, in terms of getting things done. And finally, and it's another version of the same message, in the 5th century, the great city of Athens was at war with Sparta. They retreated from the countryside. The Spartans would come every year and burn the fields. The Athenians went behind their city walls. And it turns out that the density of people, the lack of social distancing within the city walls brought about, encouraged a disease. And many, 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 many died, including Pericles, the leader of the Athenians. The story then again, as told in the histories produced at the time, notably by Thucydides, are about matters of leadership. Who leads and how people should react, should hang together or not in times of crisis. Again, it's not about virus, it's about people and how they act together, how they collaborate. So one of the key components we can say of design thinking is you reframe. You look at your challenge. It might be to start a new product. It might be to develop a new kind of service experience. Start with the people and think carefully about what it is you're actually facing, what it is you're actually doing. Here, virus actually isn't the big issue. It's about how people hang together, how people act together, who's in charge, how leadership works. That is reframing. It's not about a virus, reframe, it's about leadership. That is a key component of the design thinking process. So today, let's have a look at this human-centered approach to our crisis. The challenges we're facing today are frankly not directly about virus. We're smart. We've got incredible science and technology. It needs to be made to work with us and for us. The challenges, then, I would say, are about people, our capacity to make a difference, to act, to know, and yes, to build better futures. And that is what we hear on the international scene all the time, and rightly. But let's go further into that and see how we can understand its implications for business, for managing an organization or a company or a corporation. This is a traditional diagram here that we use to explain how human-centered design works. And it's about reconciling technical feasibility. Can we actually make this thing? Will it work? Business viability. Do we have enough money? Do we have the resources? Do we have the funding? And here's the third key component that design thinking emphasizes over and over again, human values. Do people want it? Do they need it? Do they even know they need what we are developing? You can find many, 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 many case studies of how these three components of design thinking work together. Here, we want to propose, Victor, Natalia, myself, are proposing that if we investigate, if we probe, if we get into what people need and want, we have to take account of the past. But not the past just because we want to know what happened in the past, but because memory is all about who you are now and where you want to go. History of communities is all about where you think you've come from, where you feel confident or not, and how that helps you plan for the future. So next generation design thinking, we propose, is to take memories, cultural memories, collective memories, the past achievements of your own company, even if it's just 12 months ago, or it may be you are a European company 3 generations, 4 generations, 5 generations deep. That is crucial to understanding who you are and where you want to go. So that is the key message of expanding into next generation design thinking. So let's now take this longer term perspective on where we are with the COVID-19 crisis. I mentioned already that one of the key insights, if you like, into the current crisis by standing back is that the issues at the heart, the people issues, the human issues, concern security, insecurity, and how we perceive risk, just how risky is the world. And we've heard this many, many times, but that is about your perception of the world. The facts and figures don't necessarily tie into how you feel in terms of the risk facing you in your everyday life. That is a very, very different issue to facts and figures. Finding trustworthy information in people, absolutely. And establishing effective collaboration. And then the last, well, not the last one, but another one is the local global scaling, and how, as we know, this has become such a big deal in the world these last 2-3 decades, globalism. Now it's been thrown into extraordinary highlight because some people are saying it's the end of globalism. Oh, no, it's not. Look at what we're doing here now. Globalism does not just mean that you're getting on board an aircraft and flying halfway around the world for a business meeting every 2 months. Nor does it mean that you have really, really just extended your supply chains around the world. It's so much more when you look at the human component about how we interconnect and collaborate. Now, this is quite high level stuff, but we are seeing all sorts of ways in which it's coming down to earth in terms, for example, of what, again, we're doing here now, mobilizing ICT, information communication technologies, to bring us together, and learning how co-presence, being with someone, can actually work very well in Zoom, and is in many ways more customizable than meeting face-to-face by traveling halfway around the world. We're learning new components to these big, high-level issues. Let's also think about the future and how hindsight, looking back at the history of such things as crises around pandemics, how this can help us orient on the future. Here is a Steve Jobs quote. I don't normally quote Steve Jobs. I don't find him an attractive person or whatever. However, he did make this statement, which I think is very, very smart and very worth reading. Here he goes. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You're wanting to put together the components of a new business. You're wanting to put together a smart idea you have with some funding, with building up market opportunity, with promotion, making a pitch also down the line to scale up, whatever it might be. You can't connect the dots by looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. What? You don't plan forward, you look back, listen more. You have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something. Here he gets very, very human. Trust your gut, he says. Your destiny, life, karma, whatever. But the key is look back with human sensibilities, with human angle on things. Look back that you can plan forward. This approach has never let me down, and it's made all the difference in my life, Steve Jobs. This actually, looking back that you might look forward, is captured in an old Roman divinity, deity, Janus. And there he is on a coin. But it's actually him, her. It's not just it's not gender. The gender actually is very interesting. It's him and her. But anyway, Janus looks backwards to look forward. And this is what we're using as the title of a new research initiative at Stanford to figure out how getting a bigger picture by looking back can help us plan for the future. Some of it is already deeply embedded in the field of strategic foresight, planning, strategic planning. And we are well versed and well expert in this. But here's a key point. And it's fundamental for planning any kind of new operation, any new initiative, any kind of an entrepreneurial venture. Some people, as you've heard, think that looking ahead means you look forward, that you're focused on the future, what comes up. You're a bit like a sprinter in a race. What are you doing? You're ready, you've trained, yes, but here you are on the starting line, in the blocks. The start happens, the pistol goes off, and bang, you go down the line to get to the finishing line as fast as you can. You're oriented on that finishing line. I've got to get there, I'm going to get there before anybody else. This is an inappropriate way to think about planning for the future. We don't know where the finishing line is. We don't have finishing lines. Well, we do. We've got one. As an archaeologist, I can point this out to all of us. You're going to die. Okay, there's your finishing line. Okay, but I suggest that actually, rather than be so obsessed with dying, it might be better to focus on living. How do we do that? Another angle, another mindset. Think less of being the sprinter and more the surfer. I'm Californian, okay, so I can draw upon those wonderful experiences of hanging out in the freezing cold Pacific, looking for a wave to surf. Surfers don't look at the beach. You look at where the waves are coming from. And then using your skill and your judgment, you choose the time to make an effort, a commitment, to give it a go. You pick that wave up, you've watched them come in one after the other, you pick the wave up and you follow it in to make it into a creative experience. It's not just getting to the beach, it's the process. It's the experience of following the wave and making it more or less spectacular, your experience. That's a different kind of mindset. And we call it a Janus mindset. Simultaneously looking back and forward, I'll just read this out because it's more efficient. Janus connects pasts and futures, gaining perspective, getting a bigger picture on where you are now with hindsight and foresight, finding orientation now, not by telling the story of the past, not by predicting what is to come, you'll always get it wrong, but by seeking relationships, passages, flows from the past, ways the past lingers on, stays with us, to haunt us, sometimes to hinder us, but sometimes to inspire how we might build the future. This is fundamental to design thinking as a way of creating innovative futures. And yes, learning from the past. So what are the lessons for today? We've reframed. We've said it's not just about a virus. It's much, much more. It's much more interesting. It's about leadership. It's about security, insecurity, trust, information, collaboration, creativity. It's all about all of those things. Here's some lessons that we can use to enhance our design thinking. First of all, agility. And here's a profound message coming out of design. All courses of action that you may take are local and provisional. Don't think that they're going to last and that once you come up with an answer, it's going to work. It's about agility, and we know about agile management and all the rest. Yes, here is confirmation that that is what we should be looking at. Another one, research actually really counts. It was always the heart of design thinking. Find out, seek empathy, find out what's really going on in people's worlds, in their lives, in their experiences. That requires research. Now, there are many, many well-established ways of finding out about people. Don't shirk on it. Find out about others. Get into their world. Gain, as we say in California, empathy. Be mindful of their world, gain empathy. Next lesson. Complexity is tough. Traditional management typically fails on dealing with complex situations. And here, design thinking is a very flexible way of approaching project management, is actually a profoundly different way of leading organizations and companies. Remember those stories about viruses in antiquity, in the past, about plagues, bacteria, epidemics, all showed a single, well, not a single message, but a consistent message about power and leadership. It's fundamental. Now, we could go into all sorts of issues here as to what kind of leadership is needed. Let's just say that the grand figure of the autocrat doesn't necessarily work very well in these circumstances. They tend to fail. Next, there's no single one answer because it's complex and it keeps changing. It keeps adapting. The world keeps changing and stops us being confident in staying with one answer we've found, one way of doing things. No, we need to continue exploring iteratively in constant learning. Now, this is going to be, I predict, one of the biggest things to come out of this COVID crisis, which is that we always need to learn. There's no stopping learning. And I'm going to suggest that one of the biggest things that's going to happen is the creation, the enhancement, the elaboration, the development of more ways for companies, organizations, governments, communities, individuals to learn, lifelong learning. And how do we do that? How do we get together to train, to learn new modes of doing business, new ways of funding, new ways of researching difficult, complex issues? This is big item number one, no doubt about it. So look ahead to learning futures, how you are going to maintain learning. And it means all sorts of things in terms of institutions and organizations of learning, whether they are universities or whether they are informal groups of people who learn together. Here is a key as well, I think, component of what we're seeing at the moment. A typical way that we approach design, and it's a good way of approaching design through engineering, is the top half of this diagram. We identify a problem, we engineer a solution. And there are ways of doing that. And it can be, this is a key approach to technology development, for example. You look for bugs, you see that some people have a challenge, and you engineer a solution to that, and that becomes a product. Isn't that great? It's not wrong. However, what we're seeing is the emergence of a key component of the world that's actually always been there, which is it's complex. And sometimes you can't identify the problems. Sometimes there is no reason why things happen. Instead, you look for how you frame it. You can say, oh, it's all about a virus. It's all about a virus. No, it's not. It's about people. Reframe. That's the first component. Then explore what the options are with a view not to any particular solution. There is going to be no solution to COVID-19. It's going to come back. And if it doesn't come back, another one will. This is the story of complex human history. So what do? Iterate. You just get on with it. You iterate, you keep doing it, you keep learning and trying something new and trying something new. You will not come to one solution. This is a very different mindset that's going to come out of our COVID-19 crisis. Another lesson that we can learn is how do you build your capacity, to explore and adapt? And how to avoid rigid mindsets that stop you exploring, experimenting, trying things out, iterating, give it another go, do another prototype, do another test, start again, get more empathy. All of that process, that activity needs a basis. How are you going to set yourself up as a small company, as a small startup, or as a big corporation? How are you going to maintain this flow of learning energy? What can we do in all of these lessons? First, again, the classic big picture story that I mentioned, foreground human experience. It's not about technology. It's going to be about trust and security. Build up, I've called them research foundations. What I mean there is research infrastructures. That is, how are you going to learn? How are you going to build that into your life, your company, your organization? Who are you going to hook up with in an alliance? Are you going to do a class? Are you going to do an online course? Or are you going to join a group of like-minded companies who learn from each other? The next is to connect leadership with these infrastructures and make every corporation, every organization a learning community. And I'm not talking about here about everybody going to university for all their life. In fact, I think we're going to see the demise of the traditional university. It's not up to dealing with what we're facing at the moment. It never was. And the other one is embrace open, what I'm calling iterative, pragmatic creativity. Of course, I'm promoting design thinking. There's what we can do. There's one that we're doing here right at the moment, social distancing. So I thought I might sort of have a couple of comments here about this. Design thinking is an action-oriented mindset. Social distancing, what can we, learn from it? Well, it's a time to not so much plan, but train. Don't plan, train for more uncertainty, ambiguity. This is, in that sense, the new normal, because it was always the norm. Build infrastructures for creative adaptive learning in your life, in your organization. Accept the design thinking combination of iteration, doing things again, prototyping again, and also how you need to think sideways sometimes, divergent, and then focus in on a problem where you need to be both local and distributed. It's going to be even more important in the future to be connected. And solo, yeah, social distancing, but also sharing. And this just makes us more creative in looking for how we're going to get together and collaborate on these things. And a final one here, Shakespeare Quarantine has been a classic component of human experience for eternity. And Shakespeare, as we know, wrote some of his best work in quarantine. To wind up then, I just want to flag up the JANUS Initiative. And with Natalia and Victor, we are wanting to really make our commitment to design thinking. And SAP are a design thinking company, and design thinking, I believe in it, not because it's the latest fashionable thing, because it's been around for all of human history, and it works. So in promoting design thinking, let's take ourselves more seriously, actually, in terms of our gut feelings, Steve Jobs, in terms of this big picture of where we've come from, in terms of understanding the experiences of grandparents and those who have dealt with other kinds of issues like this in relatively recent history, but also looking back to gain a big picture, orientation on where we've come from. And all of this is at the heart of the JANUS Initiative. And we'd love to share whatever we've got. I loved the way Daria and Danil started us off with a global community who can learn together. And that's what I'm promoting. And that's what we're promoting in the JANUS Initiative. So there you go. There's some thoughts. And of course, we're in a world of things, of masks, and of also, and just think of the human component behind masking and what it says, and the emotive side to it, and of course, the historical, the cultural side to these everyday items that bring all sorts of emotions, feelings, understandings, histories, memories to us. And that's kind of a summary of what we're talking about here in next generation design thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Actually, do you want, Victor, do you want to continue, or maybe we will move to questions to Michael? Maybe he will need to go, or he's staying. So Michael, please tell us which way will be more.
I'm good. I'm here to help in whatever way.
Okay, sure. So here is one question to you, Michael. How soon you think humanity will be united and be more free to communicate?
I don't think we are going to be more free, and I don't think it's a case of big changes coming with respect to freedom of communication. I think what we are seeing is how our current world situation is prompting all sorts of both positive and negative responses to this. In that, in some ways, information sharing is under challenge because some communities, some governments don't want you to know what's going on. Whereas, look at what we're doing here now. I think this is remarkable what you've set up here with this, set of connections. You're streaming. We have these difficult, let's face it, difficult infrastructures, difficult systems, difficult services like Facebook, like social networking, which bring with them positives, hey, we can connect, and negatives, yeah, you're getting watched, and there's trolling, and there's disinformation, and all the rest. Yeah, that's the reality of human communication. It's always been like that. We always have to ask, who do you trust, who do you don't? So in answer to your question, I think what we've seen is that the issues are not straightforward, but we also see how so important it is for us to be together communicating. However we might do that, it has become so much more important, I suggest.
Yeah, and I have a question on live stream. How to win the hearts and minds of customers when you can't meet them in person during COVID, and considering also our audience from around the world who are trying to get to the States, it's already for them a challenge to travel there, but now they can travel to meet their potential customers.
Yes, it's a frequent question.
it's an absolutely appropriate one. Here, again, what we are being prompted to do is look at the media we already have I've just mentioned, and social media and communication media, live streaming, live and mediated, how important they've become. Yeah. And they were beforehand. The way we reach our customers can be through various media. And we can, make more or worse use of media. There are good ways of using Zoom. There are bad ways. Okay. There are good ways of using Facebook. There are bad ways. What we are being prompted to do is look to how we use those. But there is one key message, I would say, in all of this, which is to do with those human values that I put up on the slides that are coming out of this crisis. Trust. How do you establish trust with people? How do you deal with issues of security and insecurity? And I would suggest at the heart of this are some key values. For example, authenticity. We can communicate authenticity in various ways. In fact, using history and memory to communicate authenticity is a great, very powerful way of doing so. You explain where your companies come from and how it's done all this in the past, and it has established trustworthy connections with people. What does that all come down to? Stories. Learn how to make good stories, and you can communicate them in various ways. You can do them in a 3-minute video. You can use TikTok. You can use YouTube. You can do a high-end 5-minute production in 4K video and put it on Vimeo. Or you can have a beautiful website. Or you can do a fabulous piece of Zoom theater with a group of people and get them pulled into your world. So in the end, I would say one thing in answer to that question: tell stories and learn how to do it better. Just keep practicing. Iteration again. Practice, practice, practice. Keep going with the stories. That has always been the way to connect with people.
Yeah, we give such opportunity in our community just to pitch to international investors so they can practice their stories. That's one.
Totally. Yeah. And this again is an old field. My world that I study is ancient Greece and Rome, and ancient Greece and Rome was centered on the whole field of communicating with people. Sometimes in person, of course, in a theater, in a law court, in a political arena. But the key was communication, and it was the field of rhetoric. It's the same now. How do we make a statement? How do we make an argument? How do we convince other people that we are worth listening to? That was what they were doing back in ancient Greece and Rome, way back 2,500 years ago, and learned how to do it very well. There's another orientation from the past, but of course now, the range of media that's available to us now is just spectacular. The beautiful video, the fact I can, be in my Baroque palace here with you in, or I can switch to my art studio in the same way as you switch the different worlds you belong to, the different stories, the different theaters you can create of your world, and share your energy with that.
Thank you.
We have, Michael, we have one more question, maybe more practical even. Can you please give an example of how you did your story?
Here and now? Give me more direction. My story? You mean my life story?
Daniel, do you think we can ask this participant, his name is Rinat, what actually he meant by his question? Maybe he will give us more details, what he wants to hear from Professor Michael Shanks.
I can let Rinat talk. We can ask.
Yeah.
Rinat, please clarify what you meant. You may speak verbally if you want to.
Yeah, so that we could answer your question.
Rinat, could you please clarify your question? So Rinat is texting how you pull people in the world, right? That's okay. All right. Rinat probably doesn't. Rinat, can you talk?
Yeah, I think I'm. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Michael, you just explained that you have to give a story so you can pull the people in your world and get them somehow interested. So I'm just curious how you did such a stories, and do you have any good example how you did it?
Yes. You know, storytelling has become a really cornerstone to design thinking. And as you know, it applies to both your customers, your clients, but also potential investors, and, you know, maintaining investment. And indeed communicating amongst, you know, a team, for example. In terms of how you do that, can I give an example? I tend to use, as you've heard, examples that don't fit into everyday life, kind of. By that I mean, I didn't used to do this very much, but I found people find it very interesting when I talk, for example, about the Trojan War. Because we've all kind of sometimes, if we're Western, have an angle on, you know, ancient Greeks and Trojans and Achilles and such. And of course, it's a classic archetypal story of warfare and conflict. If we look at Hollywood storytelling, I'm not a fan of Hollywood storytelling, don't get me wrong. But if we look at how they do it, you have various components. One is the narrative. That is character development, character structure, plot, how you arrange the plot, how you bring in scenarios, the setting of a story. Take the whole Star Wars franchise, for example. It's based upon some very, very deep archetypal stories in European folklore and legend. And it's a lot of it is to do with what used to get called the hero's journey, and certain kinds of character who go off and do certain things. And we recognize the story. We find it very comforting because it confirms the way we see the world. But then you can twist it and you can manipulate it to pull people in to say, whoa, that was such a great way of telling it. So telling your story using these techniques can engage people. And I think I don't think this is this is not rocket science. We are all actually quite expert storytellers. We have to be because we're human. But that doesn't mean we can't get better. And it doesn't mean we can't look, for example, as Hollywood does, to how we produce stories. By that, I mean production values. This, in the world we live in today, is really a big deal. That is, we have such beautiful, for example, screens, cameras, microphones, sound. These things count for a lot. A single beautiful image is better than something scrappy that wasn't put together properly, that wasn't thought through. Design values here are a big deal. Designing a story with appropriate imagery, with just a focus upon production values and how they work. These are just examples of how we can learn to be better at communicating.
I have one more question, and I don't know, I suggest we move on further, but I mean, people are asking, and it's very engaging conversation right now. I guess it's coming from somewhere in one of the third world, I mean, some of the developed countries, where the guys are asking, politics doesn't help when they approach Western countries, when they raise capital and try to get customers in, for example, United States. So they're asking like how to deal with biased customers and investors to succeed when they consider, for example, like, oh, you're Russian, or you're like from I don't know, Senegal, or from wherever other country where they don't have perfect politics, but it doesn't mean that these guys are something to do with that politics.
Exactly. I think there's a lesson here we're seeing, for example, in the United States and some parts of Europe, which is that we are faced with viewpoints that say, because you come from somewhere, you have a certain character. But look at how that's fallen apart in the United States. It's very, very clear that there is no one American type at all. I mean, the spectrum is so vast now, and everybody's seeing that. Everybody's seeing that we have those who have acted responsibly, with honor, with trust in facing this common challenge. We've seen how they do that. We've also seen others who won't go there, who just ignore their responsibilities. These human values are much, much more important than these stereotypes. And I think we're seeing through a lot of the stereotypes. And we're facing up to these things which have been around a long, long time, bias and prejudice. They're not going to go away, but they do shift. And I come back to what I said before, tell your story. If you have an authentic story to share and you tell it the way it should be, people are going to listen. And, you know, as I say, you know, there is no one European, there is no one American. We are part of our, and this is where the local and global issue comes in. We are both local, but also connected. Appeal to local belonging, local story, your personal story, and connect that with the personal story and experience through empathy of your customers and clients. And these other issues of ethnicity, of nationality, become much less important. I'm very keen that we have Natalia and Victor here, who've got so much also to share. And yeah, I did my, you know, spiel and all that. But boy, we have such a rich body of experience and aspiration and expertise in our JANUS Initiative.
Okay, I think we can move to the second part of our discussion, and we will maybe announce the rest of the questions after the second part. Otherwise, we will be just stuck here.
And that's not a bad thing, but,
sure,
but we've got so much more. There's so much more to share.
Yeah. So Victor or Natalia, who is taking the second part to continue?
Perhaps I can start, obviously, because as I know, and what is that Danil and Daria asked us to be, they said, be ready to speak Russian. And so in case of, if it's necessarily to make sure that we will be, you know, reach our wide audience, I just make some short comments on my side, specifically to mention what Michael explained related to multiculturals and multidisciplinary role of Stanford and industry collaboration with Stanford. So yeah, let me speak my native language. And коллеги, добрый вечер, добрый день, кто где находится. Я просто хотел бы сказать, что так получилось, что с 2014 года я работаю в Стэнфорде, преподаю и, ну, наверное, последние 3 года являюсь SAP Stanford Industry Liaison. Liaison – это такая область, когда мы активно взаимодействуем как крупные корпорации, в данном случае SAP, со Стэнфордом. И здесь вот очень важно, что Данил в определенной мере представляет стартап-комьюнити. Очень много компаний родились в Стэнфорде, в d.School, в School of Engineering. Ну, я не буду говорить Сергея Брина и Ларри Пейдж, которые, по сути дела, их магистерские программы родились от взаимодействия с Терри Виноград, другими профессорами Стэнфорда. И, собственно, так возник Google, и первый сервер находится там у нас. Поэтому органично, что стартапы рождаются не в, даже, наверное, не в стенах Стэнфорда, они рождаются в общежитиях, в дормс. И, конечно, вот это тесное взаимодействие, крупные корпорации очень много уделяют этому вниманию. Я, наверное, больше провожу времени в Стэнфорде, в Беркли, чем я провожу в своем офисе SAP, хотя это всего 5 минут езды. Ну и, конечно, у нас очень важно, что там не только присутствует Stanford faculty members, а много у нас visiting faculty, и Наталья в данном случае представляет visiting faculty, которая, ну, по сути дела, была интегрирована в систему Стэнфорда для того, чтобы, ну, в определенной мере у нас есть и немцы, и россияне, есть и японцы, китайцы. У нас был очень интересный опыт, когда мы в САП привезли японские корпорации, и мне очень интересно наблюдение. Вот я бы, наверное, передал слово Наталье, как мы взаимодействуем со всем миром. Worldwide experience. Наталья, вот, может быть, ваш опыт вы скажете?
Да, конечно, добрый день, коллеги. Я тоже позволю себе на русском, наверное. Во-первых, я смотрела уже некоторые записи ваших замечательных вебинаров Go Global, и в частности с Ильей Стрибулаевым я абсолютно согласна, что даже те стартапы, которые рождаются в Стэнфорде, они несут в себе культуру Стэнфорда. Поэтому, чтобы понять эту атмосферу, погрузиться, необходимо действительно провести какое-то время, не день, не два, а действительно интегрироваться, и мне повезло, в общем-то, находиться в Стэнфорде уже 3 года в тесной связи, тесно работая в проекте с профессором Shanks и с Виктором и другими замечательными коллегами из Стэнфорда. И меня, конечно, в большей мере интересует корпоративная, как она влияет на формирование, каким образом даже в том же дизайн-мышлении можно добиться больших результатов, объединяя людей из разных культур. Не просто, это значит из разных стран, это из разных корпоративных культур. Вот как Виктор уже начал рассказывать, был интересный очень опыт японских компаний, когда в САП-академии мы принимали группу из Японии, топ-менеджеров различных японских компаний, и они работали у нас над Next Gen Design Thinking. Сессию мы с ними делали. И оказалось очень интересно, мы потом послушали их фидбэк, для них один из таких инсайтов, одним из инсайтов было, что они наконец-то впервые работали в командах, менеджеры. Вы знаете, в Японии достаточно закрытая корпоративная культура в компаниях. И человек, приходя в одну компанию, как жизнь разных компаний между собой не происходит. И здесь, работая над они впервые, ну, может быть, не впервые, но действительно у них такой был опыт вот в одной разных японских. И это действительно дало для них большие результаты, как они потом сами с нами делились. Я верю в эффективность работы, в эффективность межкультурных, эффективность создания инноваций в командах, в межкультурных командах. Коллеги, я, наверное, не буду больше времени занимать. Спасибо. И, возможно, есть что-то сказать еще интересного у коллег.
Если это возможно, уважаемые коллеги, я просто хотел бы сказать, что все говорят дизайн мышления, дизайн thinking. Вот у нас есть JANUS инициатива, но вообще все это делают люди. Как сказал Майкл, I just would like to mention that everything is human-oriented. Поэтому I just want to show Stanford Center for Design Research barbecue party last year, because that's about people. Я бы хотел попробовать сейчас зашарить свой экран, если это получится.
Victor and Michael, with this sense, there is a question. Is there really any industry or types of companies where this method, like design thinking, is not applicable at all? Or it suits any niche, any type of company, any industry, so it works separately? Here is the question we have.
Sorry, I always plunge in, and just talk. I think when I was mentioning the importance of being local and realizing that one kind of solution it doesn't work everywhere. We need to be sensitive to different needs, challenges, whether they are to develop a product or to create your company and its team. So everything is local and specific. However, design thinking is kind of like a bad name, because it's not just design. You're not planning everything out, nor is it thinking. It's action oriented. I like to think that design thinking is better understood really as a particular way, no, not a particular way, as a way of managing projects. It's a way of doing things. And so it can apply to anything, yes, because it's a way of doing things. It's a mindset. It's not a method, but there are methods involved. For example, finding out about people, researching people. We all should be doing that. It helps orient us. It helps us plan and act. So the answer is yes. Design thinking applies everywhere. When you understand that it's a way of doing things, it's a style, it's a way of managing projects and challenges. It's a way of solving problems. It's a way of being creative and innovative. But it can also involve, depending on your circumstances, very specific techniques, for example, in budget planning. Because that's part of managing a project and a challenge. So it's both local and it's a mindset and way of doing things.
So if we take military or government, you think it's applicable there too?
Oh, totally. And has been applied. Yeah. We are very fond of, in the design, and Victor can tell you in our Center for Design Research, the case studies that we can point to for design thinking are in all walks of life. Massive companies as well as small startups. The challenge is usually how to pull it off. Would you agree, Victor? You know, how to get it going. I mean, this is what SAP is doing a lot with its client companies, helping them find a way of doing it. Would you say?
So
that's correct.
The crucial thing, how you move from research part and looking around and talking to people to actually doing. So how to make your startup fly, how to make it getting to success step by step, but not just, I don't know, researching. That's what people are afraid of, that you will be stuck.
Oh, too right. But do you have any comments on that, Victor, Natalia? You know, is how you go make the shift from finding out to doing.
Perhaps I can answer by sharing my screen. So essentially, what you can see, this is the this is actually our Center for Design Research group with Larry Leffer, who is the founder. And as you can see, we have a core faculty members, who is Larry Leffer. You see that, you know, Larry is in quite, I would say, senior person. We have younger PhD students, and I can tell you from that type of group, at least 30% of PhDs, they started their own companies. So they as soon as they finish PhD, they come to the startups or they started their own companies. So this is the real example from Stanford. I also said that the core faculty member, like postdocs, who is at Stanford here, they are actually doing research for industry. So they're sponsored by companies to do research. So there are organic link between research at Stanford and real life. You will finish your PhD, you can be going to startup. I think it's unlikely that people will join from Stanford large larger companies, I would say, with older history. I can say from that group of people, one PhD joined NASA, and also we have 2 people who were sponsored by Google and Amazon. The rest is in the younger, newer companies. But that's not, this is a core team. What is important, and this is a global view, you can see our students around the globe who is doing project for the companies. And they are not based in Stanford. Here is a Stanford team, but we also have people in Germany, Switzerland, Finland. We have very, very unique Nordic presence. And they are doing projects, and the projects are real. This is about prototyping future. And they are, I mean, in international students, much more likely will join well-established local companies. I mean, I know that this is in the center is a Volvo project. And for Volvo team, some students in Sweden, they joined Volvo. They're not going to startups. So it really depends. You can't really make Silicon Valley everywhere. It really depends on the country, on the culture. And yeah, so in fact, I would see it's very specific. You can consider for SAP, yes, we are doing project with Stanford. This is our students from the last project. And we did amazing project. But there was too early to make reusable boxes for supporting warehousing, because US Post Office was not ready for that sort of innovation to send boxes and to manage these boxes logistics for retail. So essentially it may work in the future, but that was extreme experience for students. I mean, extreme in a positive way. So and students are, I know 2 students from this project, they joined newer startups in this American team. Here is also German students, and German students, some of them, they joined SAP. So that's the difference. It's less likely that students from Germany will join, startups in Germany, simply because their environment is a little bit different. But they will be fine to be in the long-standing corporations like SAP, as for example. Yeah. So let me stop my sharing my screen. Yeah, sometimes, we are most of the time, this is interesting because we are spending most of the time in Microsoft Teams, and Zoom sometimes is not really very much standard in some companies. Yeah, but I think I have 30 more slides, which I will not show right now. But if you have any questions answering how corporations are work with the companies, we'll happy to answer that.
Yes, Victor, one more question. We have concerning team formation. So you mentioned, and Michael also mentioned, that it is quite important to exchange maybe cultural aspects, cultural specifics between each other, and consider them when doing the research, when you talk to your customers. And still, do you think it is better, it will be more efficient if when forming the team, all the members are from one culture, from one country, for example, or it is a combination of various representatives, where the result will be better? For example, we take one multicultural team and one monocultural.
There are some research findings on this that are very, very relevant to team building and success. The relationship of a team and its composition to its success in achieving its goals. Now, we might think that if you're putting together a team, you need expertise of certain kinds. If you're in healthcare, for example, and you're putting together a healthcare team, you're going to need different kinds of deep expertise. You might think that that is going to be your primary aim, your main objective in putting together a team is to get the right expertise, okay? And that the people sitting around your team table should be, all the different kinds of expert you need. And that will give you success. Another way of looking at this is to say that you want to put together a team that all have shared experiences. They belong to the same community. They are culturally similar. Actually, the way it works, and again, our research shows this, is that these are not the key factors. That is, you know, you all have shared experience, or that you have a range of appropriate expertise. So, for example, when we put together a team, we in the D.School at Stanford sometimes say, you need to check in your expertise at the door. That is, leave your expertise behind. What do we mean by that? What we mean by that is when you sit around a table, a team table, you do not want people who are sensitive, self-defensive, and don't want to share. In fact, we know that expertise is so less important than sharing. It doesn't matter how expert you are. If you will not listen, it doesn't matter. And that applies also to diversity, that really what you want is exactly diversity that can be shared, because you want variety shared. So the key issue in putting together a team is, can they communicate with each other so that they can appreciate human needs, wants, and desires? And that is the key. And that means you want people who can deal with a variety of experiences, identify with them, empathize with them. And I'll give you a statistic, which is one of the biggest findings that we've had out of the many, many years, decades actually, of research into teamwork in Larry's Center for Design Research. And it goes as follows, if you observe a team working together on a project and consider what makes it successful as a team or unsuccessful, there is one guaranteed way of predicting the success of a team. You might think it's expertise. You might think it's cultural diversity. You might think it's a bunch of different things. It's not. Pretty much there's a 90% correlation between certain features of a team and its success. And it goes like this. You could put it this way. When the researchers observe a team, let's say it's working for 6 months on a project. Within 2 weeks of observing the team, the researchers can predict with 90% certainty, accuracy, whether or not this team is going to be successful. And the basis of that prediction, well, I wonder if you'll know what it is. And it's not about expertise. It's about your capacity to listen to each other. That's pretty much it. Now, how do you get to know whether people listen to each other? The researchers observe body language. The body language of your team members is one of the biggest factors in your success. What? Of course, because we're dealing with teams of people. Mm-hmm. And we've all had experiences of this. You don't even have to listen to people. And I can do it for you. And I do this regularly in my seminars. And I think, Daria, you've seen me do this before. Let's say you're in a team and I'm a team member and we're all sitting around a table talking about what we're going to do in our product development. And I'm sitting there and I'm an expert on material science, okay? And I know I'm an expert. And we're talking about what material to make our fountain pen out of. I like fountain pens. And I'm sitting there and material scientist, and I'm listening to all of you. And then at some point, and I'm sitting like this, okay, I'm sitting like this. And at some point, I roll my eyes and do this. Ooh. That's it. That's all you need. Yeah. That kind of body language says, I know better than you. I'm not going to listen to you. You're talking crap. And we're going to fail. That kind of behavior is what actually is a key to working in teams. So what you want is diversity, so that you've got a chance of coming up with something different, and diversity that can talk in a, let's call it, civilized way.
Mm-hmm.
It's about civility, it's about listening skills, and heartfelt empathy. I get your point of view. I can see where you're coming from. Hey, maybe we could do this because, you know, I've got this range of experiences here that might be relevant. That is how to make teams work.
It's very much similar
Sorry,
to
go on. Yes, Daria.
Very much similar to exercising leadership, right? Because
It
similar
is.
approaches professors tell us when they form teams during leadership programs.
And mind, you know, there's a big cultural component here because there are different styles of leadership. And of course, the gestures that I just showed to you are a particular set of gestures in Western society. When I started going to Greece, for example, I was always puzzled by the Greek nod. They do this when they mean yes. And I was kind of like, you know, to me, that's no. And yes is a non. But so gestures are culturally specific. But here we go again. What we need is a sensitivity to that and a capacity to listen and adapt to each other's humanity. So that's what comes into it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just add from my side, coming to industrial environment, and especially what we did with Natalia and Michael, when you have a quite let's say, well-established hierarchical systems, and they're coming for design thinking, for industry design thinking, I would say, you always need to observe what sort of conflict is there, because in a lot of companies, even between board members, they have a different, I would say, not conflict, I would say they have different opinions. And the way how they structure teams are always very much depend. So they, you know, if the two departments are not like each other, they continue, let's say, discussion even during the design thinking. So there are different strategies how to make sure that corporate culture will not reflect to future design thinking, because design thinking session, especially on the strategy level, you need to eliminate all issues behind, but of course, keeping corporate culture, that's what Natalia is doing, understandable. And I would say it's also related to industries, and talking to metal and mining companies and talking to telecommunication or IT companies, it seems to me a bit different culture in somehow. And obviously, if you're in metal mining companies, they are stronger engineering background. I remember this amazing story of Michael about, Michael, remember you told about your design thinking for engineers in Netherlands, you know, in the port, and that's amazing example how it. I think it's what it was. Yeah, the engineers created engineering prototype for engineers for the future. So it's always also nice to see. I don't want to say that people from different industry backgrounds they are bad or good. It's simply that corporate culture is also reflecting this. So let's say from my experience, it was also banking business. And banking, we have Deutsche Bank regular, we have Commerzbank. They are different from engineers, and it's always a reflection of when people are spending most of time working for numbers, doing controlling things, but they are also creative. It's only the way how you structure your session, because all companies coming to the Valley, they want to make something new. They want to make something new for their own companies. It's the way how you structure your teams.
Thank you, Victor. Danil, anything from your side, maybe from streaming, or I think we can take the last comment or question, and it's kind of time for our guests to
questions, if you may.
To finish.
First one is saying, so thank you so much, Natalia, Victor, and Michael. We really appreciate. I mean, it's very interesting what you guys saying, and coming back to what you meant about diversity and importance of diversity for the team. So it's a sequence of success, diversity, empathy, listening, body language. How this could be achieved by a startup, small team working internationally? Could you recommend some resources where they can, at low cost or maybe no cost, review, learn probably some videos, books, or maybe something else where they can get this information? So if you guys all comment on this, it would be awesome. Natalia, could you share your thoughts, please? Microphone.
Yeah. Did you mean some resources to just to read?
Yeah, if you know,
on
like
this topic, or
yeah, like learning for the small team where they don't have much resources, they're not able to travel to Stanford for design thinking, and they probably might not afford most of the people, and especially COVID doesn't allow even they can afford. What would be your recommendations where they can learn this kind of listening and body language?
Yeah, sure. There are plenty of resources, and of course, huge amount of books about design thinking. And if you could just go to Stanford website, for example, our JANUS website project, janus.stanford.edu, or d.School, or just Google some design thinking book by Larry Leifer or some other team members of Stanford University. I think there are plenty of information. It's impossible to recommend just one book, actually.
Yeah,
I think from the project perspective, I just found this is one of the newer one. It's our partner Tamara. She just wrote about 50 years of design at Stanford University. Very nice book. It's just recently, I think, a few months there. And this is a really nice overview about project conducted by Stanford teams. And as you know, it's also some experience of David Kelly, Larry Leifer. And yeah, I like this book because it's not really some sort of complicated research material, but it's really nice overview of what is going on. But of course, if you want to do with very complicated, there's plenty of materials like that, small group research, and how you can make this. It's available free in Springer online platform. And I think, Michael, I know you also have very, very big a shelf with the books. What would be your recommendations from that side?
You know, I think what you said, Natalia, is true, that and this is our interconnected world again. The resources that we might have to learn, okay? We want to learn how to build teams, let's say. We want to learn how to recruit team members. How do you do that? Well, of course, you can hire Ernst & Young, and it costs a fortune. No, we don't want to do that. I think we are so blessed that we live in a world where there are many, many, many examples of how we might do this out there on the web. And it's true. The challenge is to know which is the good one. So it's not that the information and the tools and the techniques are not available. They are, and they're available for free. And so I think the best advice is to find a trusted source, a trusted website, or a particular person, or an institution, or an organization. For example, IDEO, we work closely with this design consultancy, have a non-profit side, part to their company, IDEO University. And they have tons of free available stuff on how to put together a design thinking team and such. Again, like Natalia said, we have resources for free available through Stanford. YouTube videos, they're all over the place. The challenge, again, is to find the ones that work for you. Now, that can be a very personal issue. I just don't like this style. I like that style, which is why we suggest, as Victor's just done, and yes, Natalia, have a look at our stuff first. We've, put it in there because we believe in it. And in fact, in our website, there is, doesn't take much to find it. It's a free playbook. I like playbooks, that tell you little tips and tools and techniques without it costing anything. You just have to try it. And we do have playbooks available for design thinking, and they include how to interview somebody, how to have a conversation with somebody to see whether they're going to be able to work with you as a team member. And it's a short 10-minute.
Yeah, we even advise those books when our EMBA students start working with their projects in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. So we're blessed with these books, and they are not rocket science. Because it's human-centered, a lot of this is about you being, all these values we've mentioned. Inclusivity and diversity are massive. And again, that's one of the big lessons coming out of the world today. And how do you do that? It's always an ongoing project, but it is also a human project, which means you can always incrementally, iteratively improve. Build for yourself a growth learning mindset, which is Carol Dweck. Look Carol Dweck up. She's a Stanford psychologist. And there's tons of, the other place I look, Pinterest. Oh my God. I mean, sometimes just the diagrams they have. It's great. YouTube, Pinterest, and start with a trusted source. It is there. It is out there. Try it out and see if it works for you.
Yeah. Michael and Victor, let me read the very final question. And with this, I think we will finish our meeting for today. So one of our participants is asking your advice on space technology startups. So what will be key to investors look into the space business? I'm struggling to attract investment in moon landing mission. Google announced $40 million prize if we can demonstrate land on moon. Finally, we can able to reach only finalists. Google announced no winners for prize. So what will be your advice? How to move with this project?
So I would add that I think he's struggling to raise capital in this specific segment for moon investors who invest in this kind of space projects. And it's a kind of difficult thing to raise capital. He's asking an advice to address investors in this field.
Okay.
From my experience, still space business is not global. It's still very much continent, I would say, related. So if you're physically in US, that the way of working with NASA as a starting point, they have plenty of startup supporting systems, or to work with some sort of space relating association in Silicon Valley. There are one, at least I know, a space consortium. It can be way forward. If you are physically in Europe, that the way will be in European Space Agency, because European Space Agency, they have startup department, and I know head of this startup department. They're looking for supporting different projects, initiatives. And if you are in Russia, to be honest, I don't know who can be the right point of contact. sorry, maybe Skolkovo, Skoltech, maybe as the way to as a starting point. But it's really, I don't know, Michael, maybe you are much more aware about, but from my experience, with it's space oriented is very cool in the valley, but we don't see so many, let's say, wow effect yet. Hopefully, maybe in the future.
Thank you very much. Danil, I think we are all for questions, right?
Yeah, we are. I think we are ready to finish it because we took a lot of time of the speakers and we were highly appreciate the time. From our perspective, from Go Global World community, we absolutely excited that you guys found this time and shared so many amazing thoughts and insights with us, with our community. I can say that people from different countries joined. The last question came actually from the founder, Indian founder. So, I mean, we truly excited with what you guys shared with us. Feel free to share any, I've seen you already shared a few links in the chat. So if you want to share any of your websites or with the audience, with the wider audience we have with the community, or probably you have any books and I'm not aware of, and you'd like to know the audience, we will be happy to share it with the community. And keep in mind, we are a non-profit community, we're open to help anyone. And if you guys looking for any help from us, from the founders, to test anything with the international founders, our door is always open for you guys. Just let us know. We'll be happy to help. And I suggest to do this final thing, just to say final words from you guys to the community, to the audience, and we're ready to wrap it up. And let's start with Victor.
Final words. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I remember we had discussion maybe last year when I said that maybe that would be great to have something more than only, Skolkovo Business School, because Natalia, Michael, we are all meeting Skolkovo quite regularly in the valley. So let's see, because you have a great community of startups, you have a Skolkovo fund, you have a Skoltech, which is also need to be more active. And I know Skoltech is directly linked to MIT, and Stanford and MIT culture is the similar and different. I would say it's both cases. It's also a lot of similarities, and it's always additional enrichment if you have East Coast guys involved somehow. And I know most of the Skoltech faculty members, they come from MIT. So yeah, it's a great opportunity, and thanks very much. I enjoyed very much, and thank you for inviting us. It's really, really nice to talk to people, and I hope that will be some sort of regular community which we can share information about our JANUS project, about what we are doing, and to invite companies to come to the valley.
Oh, we'll be happy, and anything you guys need from our community, we are just happy to help. Just feel free to reach out to Daria, and we are absolutely happy to do it. Michael, do you have any final words for us, please?
Only what I think we are really, really exploring here is how to connect our local experiences and interests across what can be potentially the world, and as we've just heard, beyond, into space. That's what we've just ended with. Network society, and how it can override so many of these, misunderstandings and prejudices when we respect each other's diversity and, just our, human experiences, and how it's we can do this as we are doing here now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Michael, Victor, and Natalia.
Natalia, do you have any final words to say?
I wish all the best for your community and for all entrepreneurship, especially as far as the world will change after COVID. And we all will need some flexibility, connections, and creativity to stay sustainable and successful. So I wish all your companies, startups who are a part of your community to gain their goals, to be successful. And thanks so much for having us today.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's so great. Thank you, Natalia.
Daria,
Thank you.
let you wrap it up. You are the...
Yeah, I'm really glad that we managed to make it happen, that we connected actually Russia, Europe, and States, Silicon Valley in this virtual room. Thank you for your time, and we wish great day ahead to Michael and great evening to Victor and Natalia. Thank you those who joined us here in Zoom and those who actually watched our live stream on Facebook and on the page of Go Global Community. So we really appreciate your being with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys soon, and stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.